Hi everyone, welcome to our Phonics Shed webinar to do with our Phonics Screening Checks. I'll just wait just for a couple of moments to see how many we've got joining us. And then we can get started. This will be recorded and it will be put on our EdShed YouTube channel either this evening or tomorrow morning. So any recording will be able to access there, and you can also forward it as well to any other members of staff that might be interested. As we go, it's just me on the webinar today, but if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A box and I'll make sure that I have a look at that before the end at some point. So today's webinar is all about the best ways to prepare your class and run Year 1 Phonics Screening Checks. So I'm going to start a little bit about what's included in the Phonics Screening Check, and then preparing pupils, making sure they've got everything they need to know before the screening check. And then we'll go a little bit through assessment, and I'll show you a bit of Phonics Shed, and we'll have a look at the Phonics Shed Teacher Hub and where you can access different resources. You can get a Phonics Shed free trial if you wish to after watching this, and that will end after a couple of weeks, and you'll have access to everything on there. So if you'd like to get a free trial after this, you can. Now, for those who haven't done the screening check before, this is what the DFE say that it's for. So the purpose of it is to confirm that all children have learned phonic decoding to an age-appropriate standard, and that children who have not reached this level should receive extra support from their school to ensure that they can improve their decoding skills, and will then have the opportunity to retake the phonics screening check the year after. So what it is it was introduced in 2011, 2012 in England to sort of sharpen up phonics teaching within schools. There have been criticisms of it because it only assesses reading, and it also has contained within it alien words or nonsense word or pseudo words, whatever you call them, which aren't part of the English language. And research has shown that some readers with high ability often will trip up on these as they try and make them fit with real words that they know from their vocabulary. But we'll talk a bit more as we go through that. But we need to do it. So it's conducted orally and it's one-to-one with the teacher. There's no time limit set on it at all, but it usually lasts 5 to 10 minutes. And it should be done with a teacher that the children know. They're still very young, they're only in Year 1, just to avoid unnecessary stress for the child. It needs to be ideally in a quiet room with minimal distractions and well lit. Now, the pass mark is usually around 32 that the children need to read out of 40 words. But it's subject to change, and the threshold will be announced on Monday, the 20th of June. So it usually takes place in June or at some point in the summer term, and this year it's the week beginning Monday, the 6th of June. Now, this year we also have Year 2 pupils who did not pass the autumn check. They'll be retaking this with the Year 1s. I've also included here, and I'll send this out after the webinar, this presentation, links to the different guidance. So we've got administration guidance, which provides information on any access arrangements that you might have with certain children, such as children are allowed rest breaks. If you feel like a certain child might need one, they can have that. Pupils can also, if you use them in school, they can draw sound buttons on the test, if that's something that they use. Obviously, you then need a fresh one for the next pupil, and you yourself or teachers can't do that. It's just for the pupils to do if they feel like that's needed. So all sorts of information like that are there on that link. And also about responding to the results. One thing as well that we need to do is before the end of the summer term, we have to share the results with parents, and this just needs to be whether their child has met the expected standard or not. So you might choose not necessarily to share the number with them, it's completely up to you. And the Year 2 pupils need to have the results shared from their autumn check and the summer check if they retook it. So both of their results need to be shared with parents before the end of the summer term. But all of that is in both of those links, which was on the Department of Education website. So the check contains 40 words. We've got 2 sections of 20 words, and both contain a mixture of real words and the alien words, which I was mentioned before. Alien words, we can tell what they are because they have an alien or made up character next to them. So section 1, which you can see in the images here, they include simple word structures and GPCs, mainly drawn, and then in Phonics Shed, we call them chapters 2 and 3. So that's sort of similar to phases 2 and 3 in letters and sounds. Then section 2 can include more complex word structures, which we can see here. So we've got split digraph A, for example, and label. And we've also got those that are also in the alien words too. So they need to recognize alternative graphemes at that point and phonemes in different words. At the beginning of the screening check, there's a few practice words for those of you who haven't done it before to ensure that the child being assessed understands the activity and understand what we are expecting from them. So it's nice that you've got that bit, first of all, to establish what the next 10 minutes will be like with them. And I've taken these just from the government websites. There are lots of past papers that you can look at and use as practice on there. Looking at alien words slightly more closely. So a pseudo word is a word that looks like a word in a language as it uses GPCs and spellings that exist in that language, which we can see there's some on the right there. They're sometimes referred to as alien words or nonsense words. And some of the examples might be melp or wubbin, as standard GPCs that have been used to form words that don't exist in standard English. However, something like these 2 words here, so we've got kelm and drelsk. These would not be nonsense words that would appear in the screening check, because if we look at CK, for example, that digraph there, that would never be placed at the beginning of a word. It would always be at the end of a word. So you'd never get a word that looks like that because that does not follow the rules of our language. So the reason that alien words are included, according to the DfE, because they provide the purest assessment of phonic decoding, because there's no bias based on visual memory of words or vocabulary knowledge or the width of the vocabulary of that child. So it means that they have to use the skills they've been taught in phonics lessons to be able to sound those words out and decode them for reading. The alien words are presented with a picture of an imaginary creature, and children will be asked to name the type of creature by decoding a word. So you can, if you wanted to, say, this is the name of the alien. Can you tell me the name? Now, what is tricky is quite often the children try and reconcile the word and put it as a word that looks similar in their vocabulary, which is why we need to make sure that we have lots and lots of practice of reading alien words in class. So as of last year, the government said that we need to have to teach systematic synthetic phonics, a full programme to children in reception in Key Stage 1, which is why they then said that they wouldn't be continuing letters and sounds because it's not a full systematic synthetic phonic programme. And what they mean by that is it doesn't provide support, guidance, resources or training for teachers that they need to teach using it. It's merely a scaffold for them to build on. However, if your school does use its own approach based around letters and sounds, you can still use it, but it must follow those criteria. So it must have appropriate resources. It must have decodable books matched to pupils' phonic knowledge, high quality staff training, and obviously achieving those good results. And I've taken that there from the Department of Education website. I know lots of schools are looking at the validated list, which is brilliant because we're also on there. And you know then that those schemes have all of those things and the decodable reading books that are specifically matched to the planning and the lessons that the children will have been learning. So you know that they're fully mapped out for you. But if your school doesn't use a validated scheme, that's okay as long as it meets those things. So what I'll do is show you a couple of things in Phonics Shed now that will help you get the children ready. So if I just share. So one of the things that we have in Phonics Shed is we have a screening simulator. So that's located, if you already have one of our EdShed products, in the groups page. So children can be put into groups. They can be in as many groups. It might be in a class group, phonics groups, spelling groups, whichever. And then you would go to phonics data, and then you can launch an assessment session. Now, there are a few different ones. You can launch assessment sessions on particular graphemes, on particular word list or high frequency words. We're going to look today at the screening check simulator. So what this will do is it will launch a generated word list to simulate a phonics screening check. So this is quite a nice practice activity to do with pupils. So all you do is you select the pupil that you've got sitting next to you and who you're going to do this practice session with. And then all you need to do is sit with the pupil, ask them to voice out the words and assess their comprehension using the buttons as correct, incorrect, or nearly. You can end the game at any time, and it follows the exact same structure that we spoke about before of the screening check. So we start with practice words, and then we have part 1 and part 2. So if we click start, this is the practice stage, which you can skip if you would like to, and this is what it would look like. So you then have the child say the words, decode the words on the screen. You can see that when we come to an alien word, as always, we've got a picture of an alien, so we need to say this alien's name. And then that's the end of the practice stage. And then this is the stage 1. So when we get to stage 1, if they get them nearly correct, you can then specifically say, if you could tell, which of these GPCs they were able to get, which ones they didn't, which will give us some more information in a moment on our assessment grid. You might say they didn't get those, but they got that one, and so on. So then we have our different assessment grid here. We can print group reports or pupil reports based on the information we've been given. If you did do an assessment on GPCs, you can then click there, and if it changed at any point, you can change that there. So there are lots of different things on Phonics Shed which lend themselves really nicely to getting children ready for the screening check. Now I'm just going to go back and share back with my PowerPoint. So to make sure that they're prepared, you'll need to have taught using a full phonics program. So this is just an overview of how Phonics Shed fits a whole complete SSP scheme. So we have it split into 4 chapters, with chapter 1 being pre-reading, which is similar to phase 1 of letters and sounds. Chapter 2, similar to phase 2. Chapter 3, similar to phase 3 and 4, and that's the main difference between us and letters and sounds, is we don't teach phase 4 explicitly. It's put in there earlier and sort of integrated without chapter 3. And then we have chapter 4, which is phase 5, and they're color coded. The lesson format is all the same, so you've got that as the pattern, nice consistency, and it covers all the GPCs we need before our important phonics screening. We have unique characters and actions to every GPC. We practice skills of blending and segmenting using our own methods. And we have time built in for assessment and consolidation in our medium-term plans. So you know that you've got plenty of time to cover everything, as well as going back and revisiting things, which you will most probably need to do at some point, even if it's with a small group. We also have a full intervention program on there, as well as online assessment and tracking system. And we have lots of resources and pupil games. We also have physical packs of decodable reading books, or you can also digitally allocate these to pupils online. You can also, and I'll show you this at the end, you can assign games to pupils online that correspond with the GPC that you've been teaching. So you know that they're at home or in class, depending when you want to do it. They're also practicing everything that they've been working on for that week. So this is how we make sure that we cover everything. We have chapter 1, which is designed to run from the spring term of nursery to the end of the year. Chapter 2 starts in the autumn term of reception. Chapter 3 is taught in spring and summer terms of reception. 4A should be covered in autumn term of year 1, and we need to get to the end of 4B before the screening check. So that's where we need to get to, the end of 4B. And you can see here that within each chapter, it's then further split into different sets, which make up week blocks of lesson plans. So you can clearly see what's covered in each set. This is what the long-term plan looks like. So it's just as I mentioned before, but in just a nice, easy to view sort of color-coded table. You can see where the phonics screening check falls at the end of chapter 4B there. If I click on the year 1 medium-term plan, you can see here how we've got assessment and targeted intervention weeks scheduled in, as well as our phonics screening check and targeted consolidation and intervention week beforehand. So you can very clearly see what we need to teach and when, and that we've got loads of time to go back and make sure that we revisit and consolidate learning. Here are the methods that we use for blending and segmenting. So I've got blending focusing at the moment because we're looking at the check, which we need to have the reading skills for. So we use sound it, squash it, say it when you blend a word. So you sound out the specific sounds in a word, squash it together by saying it quickly. So it'd be k-at, k-at, k-at. And then you can say the word cat. We also have guidance videos on our website in our resources section for each of the GPCs, so that if any adult who's delivering these sessions isn't specifically sure of what the sound is of a specific one, they can watch those, because we know that it's so important to make sure that we're using pure sounds, so k instead of k. So those are also really useful. We also have other extra things, such as the full intervention program, which I mentioned earlier. And we've got our lesson plans here, and these are our consolidation plans. So for every GPC, we have a daily lesson plan that you'd use in a daily phonics session. You've then got an intervention plan of that same GPC for any children, small groups or one-to-ones who need it. And you've also got a consolidation plan, just so that if you need to repeat the lesson with the whole class, you're not repeating the same lesson again. So there's loads and loads of things for you to use there. They can all, might be slightly small, but you can see that they all follow the same structure at the beginning. We have see, sound, name, action. So we show, we see, we show the flashcard, and each of our GPCs are a character. So in this case, it's wing the duckling, which is ng. We sound it, and we do the formation. We do the name of the letters, and then we also have an action. So with wing the duckling, it's you flap like a bird. We have other extra things such as continuous and enhanced provision suggestions for early years environment, so that they're consolidating everything that they have learned within their phonics lessons. And we also have suggested texts that go with our book lists as well. Digital learning, I'll show you the hub at the end, but this is what some of the games look like. These can be set for pupils to complete at home or in class, and you can set the exact game type and the GPC you would like them to practice. Now, our scheme is narrative driven with the characters. So every single new GPC that's introduced is a new character, and you introduce them through a teaching book story. So this is one that you might have as a physical thing, or you might also have it on the interactive whiteboard. And the reason that we did this, and we made sure that our scheme is narrative driven, is because lots of research suggests that children that have a love of reading are up to 3 times more likely to have higher than expected reading levels for their ages. And we've also found that schools who score highly in the Phonics Screening Check note that building a love of stories and reading plays a big part in their success. There's also other research that shows that reading enjoyment and ability have more impact on children's overall education than socioeconomic factors. So it is a crucial part of being successful and having a high level of reading by the time they leave primary school. Here are what our characters look like. So, for example, here we've got Gray the goat, and we do introduce capital letters as well. And we have our letter formation rhyme underneath there, which you can see. We also have, within when we've got any digraphs or trigraphs there, we make sure that the singular letter characters are also included too. And all of these characters pop up in the children's decodable reading books. We have songs that go with them, actions. So it really means that they see all of these things in a meaningful context. We have 140 teaching books, which is how the GPCs are introduced within the lesson, and 120 decodable books within our scheme, which you can also access digitally. High frequency and common exception words are also taught throughout in specific sets. So each set has a specific amount of high frequency words, which are then also in our decodable reading books, but only referenced at the time that the children that would have learnt them in the lessons. Words with bold letters like the common exception words that cannot yet be fully decoded. And the high frequency words and the common exception words are displayed in the front of each decodable reading book as well. Now, assessment. I showed you our assessment grid on our Teacher Hub, which we went through earlier. You can also get data from the games that children have played and have a look at their accuracies there. We've got also formative assessment, so just from day-to-day lessons, and the response from children to answers maybe in the plenary questions or just how they respond to a particular activity. We have our assessment weeks, which are within our medium-term plans, and the tracking tool, which we have shown there. So there's lots of opportunity for lots of different type of assessment that can then be put into a picture of for teacher judgment. So I've shown you a bit of our assessment tool and the phonics screening flashcards. I'll just show you quickly some of the resources we've got on Phonics Shed, and then I'll see if we've got any questions at all. So if you have any other subscription with us, you'll know that the Teacher Hub looks like this, and you can get to all the resources using the resources button, and then Phonics Shed. Here are all the chapters, and then if you click on one, you can then see the sets, which I showed you earlier, how they're all organised. If you click on one, everything you need to teach that set will be in that folder. So you've got the teaching books, the planning. I'll click on a plan so that you can see what that looks like. So at the beginning, you've got an overview. So once you get going with these, you may possibly want to just teach from the overview. You've also got detailed lesson plans for each lesson, which means that we know that it will be delivered at high quality. So we all have got a bit of a recap at the beginning, so with flashcards. And then we've got the same structure, as I mentioned earlier, see, sound, name, action. We also talk about best fit. So for example, ng is never found at the start of the word. It's most often found at the end of the words. We then have a whole group few minutes of listening to the song and practicing the letter formation using the formation rhymes. You've then also got a story to introduce Wing the Ducklings characters. Each of our independent activities have simplify, expect and extend, based on the abilities of the children in your class, making sure they have a relative level of challenge, and all of the resources we have created and are there for you to download. So you don't need to do any of that. And then some suggested plenary questions for you too. What I will also show you is one of our teaching books. So you can see what these look like. They're available in hard copies and also digital, like one I'm going to click on, so you can have them on the interactive whiteboard. Now, the teaching books are going to be read by the teacher, so they don't need to be able to be decoded by the pupil. All we're doing within this story is introducing Wing the Duckling as a character. So we've got the other characters popping up here, such as Buck the Duck. And then we've got Noah the nurse there, Curly the cat, Iggy the imp. So it's nice for the children to be able to spot those characters that they know already. Kit the kangaroo. And what we found with these characters is it just means that they start to make a really nice, meaningful connection with them, and they see them pop up all the time. And we've also got some comprehension questions there too. Now, if you want to assign work to a pupil, which could be in phonics, you can see I've got lots of different ones here. It might be a phonics book, such as Wing's Big Racket, for example, here. If I click on details, you can then see the pupils who have read the book. You can also assign specific games. Oh, clicked on the wrong thing. You can also assign specific games, and I'll show you what that looks like from the pupils account next. But as the teacher, I can also see how many times they've played it, how the percentage they've got it correct, the difficulty that they chose, and they'll go up in assignment status there, depending on how many scores they've got. If I click View Pupil, I can just see a little bit more information. I can see the phonics data for just that pupil. I can also go down and see their gameplay history and see exactly what they got right and wrong. One last resource to show you before I look at the child's game screen is our digital flashcards session, which are really good. So you might have them in a physical form, but you can also do them on here. So you can select particular sets from particular chapters. You can drag and drop them in a specific order, and they appear like this. So you can flip the card and show them the character and the formation right. Also, if they get one that's not quite right, you can click C again, it'll be reshuffled and revisited. So that's a really nice tool, and we have exactly the same as this for high frequency words too. Okay, if I log out and I'll sign in as a test pupil that I've created so you can see what it looks like. And that's the last thing that we will look at today. Now, depending what subscriptions you've got, you won't necessarily be able to see all of our sheds. Here I can see all the assignments that I've got. With Phonics Shed, they do get access to Spelling Shed as well, and you as the teacher will have all the access to Spelling Shed resources, including our SPAG quizzes. If I click on Wing's Big Racket, I can see that decodable reading book. It's got key vocabulary at the beginning, which is also really great for parents. And we've got quite a few other resources you can send out to parents too. And then if we go back to the game, here's the game that's been set for me. So it's sounding out with the grapheme NG.
Song.
So all of those will have words with the NG digraph in.
Oh. Song. Oh. Ng.
And using those pure sounds that we spoke about, which are so important.
Hang. Ah.
And so on. Now they have access to other games if you want them to, or they can be locked down and just have the work that you've assigned to them. As when you assign the work, all there is there's just a button to flick if you don't want them to have access to the whole Phonics Shed garden, which you can see that I have got here. So other things, other games they might have. So sounds game is the one that we just played, and it was the same with the last or the middle sound. They might have indie pop, which is where we've got to pop all the balloons with that sound. And there are also some vocabulary games as well. And as you assign the work, all you do as the teacher is you select the specific game type, and then you select the specific GPC that you want them to practice on that type of game. So we've got some other vocabulary ones, such as matching words.
Chin. Chill.
And so on. So that is a very quick look at Phonics Shed and how it can help you get ready for the screening check. I'll just take a quick look and see if we have any questions or anything, which it doesn't seem like we do at the moment. If you'd like to have any further questions, please get in touch with support@edshed.com, and our team will be there to help you with any questions that you've got at all.